Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today, my Lord, this guy is an amazing individual who continues to inspire. Not only did he inspire in the military and also have that elite performance as a Navy SEAL. I mean, his military decorations, I don't have enough time in my show to go through them all, but from the Bronze Star with Valor to a Purple Heart, he helps people to get off their X. It is so great to have you on the show today, Jason Redman. Thanks for being here.
Robert, honored to be on, man, and appreciate you out there, as a firefighter. I love all our firefighters, first responders, man. Frontline.
It's a similar mindset, and I love, we were having a little conversation earlier about that mindset that's around, men nowadays, as well as just individuals of constantly pushing forward. I love your story, and we'll get into your backstory, but you're the overcome army. You are that person who really leads. What does it mean in your life to kind of be that person that people look to lead them to overcome things in their life?
I think the biggest thing is it comes down to self-leadership. And I mean, at the end of the day, those are the two critical things that I speak on to any company. It doesn't matter what a company is looking for. We may get deeper into teamwork. We may get deeper into communication. We may get deeper into change management or whatever it is. At the end of the day, it comes down to two principles, and that's self-leadership and the overcome mindset. And those are the things I focus on within myself. So in order to try and hopefully motivate and inspire others to be better, I make sure that I'm doing the same thing. I mean, and it is what has enabled me to be successful in my life. This life is not easy. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. Being a dad is not easy. I mean, geez, the last several years have just been a kick in the balls for everyone,
I agree.
So and there's a lot of people that have laid down and whined and cried and blamed and pointed fingers or just said, well, I don't want to do this anymore. And man, I had several major incidents in my life these last 2 years, but I'm not going to do that because that's not me. And obviously I want to lead not just myself, but I want to lead my kids and lead others.
I love that. And I want to start kind of going back in your past with one of your quotes of the mark of a person is not found in his past, but how he overcomes adversity and builds his future. Quitting is not an option. So going back in your past, right after you got out of high school, you joined the Navy. Oddly enough, September 11th of 1992. That's crazy. I was reading that and I was like, that's kind of eerie. And that you joined on September 11th in 92. But you started your boot camp and then you were reported to BUD/S in 1995. And you so humorously put that you enjoyed many relaxing times on the beach and endless nights under the Coronado moon. That's not true, though, right?
What do you mean? SEAL training wasn't like a vacation? That's how I remember.
I like your delusional thinking, but now tell me about. I know a lot of people see movies about BUD/S and they see Navy SEALs and they see this almost picture larger than life, but at the end of the day, they're normal human beings that are going through extraordinary circumstances. Tell me more about that first day of BUD/S for you and what's your mindset, how it shifted that first time that you stepped out and go, what did I do? What did I start?
Yeah. And I love what you said there. And I often tell people that what SEAL training does is teaches you that you can do far more than you think you can. And what makes an individual as a SEAL and to make it through training is their ability to endure discomfort and pain and adversity longer than someone else. That's merely the only difference. So when I talk about, there are a lot of times I'll come speak and people will say, oh, well, you're a Navy SEAL. Of course you can do that. Yeah, but adversity is adversity and leadership is leadership, teamwork, all these different things. It's just what level can you push yourself to? And most people don't realize they can push themselves a lot further. But usually it's that initial shock when adversity hits us that causes people to take a breath or step back or say, oh my God, I can't do this, because it's that initial punch in the face, like Mike Tyson talks about, that then suddenly you're like, oh my God, I can't take another punch in the face, or I sure as hell can't take, 12 rounds of getting punched in the face. So that's kind of what BUD/S is like when you first show up, and there is a method to the madness, man. So everything is ramped up. So when you start, you were in a pre-training phase, and they kind of give you a little taste of what SEAL training is like, but it's super watered down. And they do that on purpose, because when day one of SEAL training starts, when you officially start first phase of basic underwater demolition SEAL training, it is the equivalent of getting kicked in the balls and hit in the face with a bat at the same time, while probably someone sets you on fire. And it's
that is
such
the best definition ever.
Oh my God, it is such a shock to your system, and they do it on purpose. They know what they're doing because they want to shock you. They want you to buy into this mindset that you will never make it through this, that every day and every second of SEAL training is going to be like this. And that's just not true. What it's designed to do is overwhelm your mind. And it is physically taxing. It is mentally taxing. It is emotionally taxing. But the individual, and one of the greatest things that I tell people, it is designed to be as unfair as possible. That's one of the other techniques they use. Yeah. And people who buy into that, who say, oh my God, I don't think I can physically do this. Mentally, I'm overwhelmed. Emotionally, I'm a wreck. And oh, by the way, you keep telling me the timeline or what I need to do, and you keep failing me even though when I make it.
Yeah.
And that's what leads to a massive exodus right in the first, the first 2 weeks of SEAL training are the largest quitting. That's when you get the most quitters. And then there'll be kind of a lull all the way leading up to Hell Week. And then Hell Week, they put the screws on you, and they last that entire week.
I love what you said, that they make it unfair as possible. And when you talk about the style in which you speak, the style in which you coach, the style in which you write your books, I love that. I think when you had written that when you got out of the military, when you retired from the military, you saw that there's a lot of different things that were out there, but nothing that pushed people to kind of get to that point of going, yeah, it may be unfair, but suck it up, Buttercup. It's time to go for another round. What was it that you saw in your SEAL training that you could correlate into like a normal person's life? Because, going in doing drown proofing, that's not going to help somebody who's a CEO, besides have them get very nervous around water. But what is it that you saw in what you learned in the military that you could actually tangibly put into somebody like a basic individual's life?
Doing hard things and doing things that get you out of your comfort zone and doing things that push you past where you feel like you can be. So enduring discomfort and enduring, pain, whether that's physical, mental, or emotional pain. And we are at an interesting time in our country and a lesser degree to the world, but I would definitely say right here in America, we're at an interesting time, because let's go back 200 years, or even to the very beginning of America. And then, within the first 100 years of our nation, it was tough. People had to come over here and you had to really fight, maybe not physically, but the physical labor, to go out and toil on the land and build your own house. And to do these things was really hard physical labor. And that led into the Industrial Revolution, which also was really hard physical labor.
Right.
That's gone. In this day and age, most kids are not growing up, whether it's through sports or whether it's through manual labor. We are not getting pushed. So the first time they encounter adversity, when they start to become adults, it's a shock to their system and they don't know what to do with it, which is creating, in my opinion, you want to talk about the virus. Everybody wants to talk about the virus. Hey, what's your opinion on the virus? So I always say, yes, let's talk about the virus. But I'm not talking about COVID.
Right.
I'm talking about the victim mindset. We are being inundated with this victim mindset in our country that if you're not successful, it's because of a specific demographic about you. It's because you're black or white or Christian or Muslim or gay or straight or man or woman or whatever it is.
Right.
Whatever it is, it makes you the victim. And well, you're never going to be successful because of XYZ demographic. And that's a lie, but we are creating a nation of victims. So if I'm working with somebody, that's the first thing, you can't focus on the things that are unfair or the facts that, somebody screwed you over or this happened or that happened. None of that matters, man. We can only live in the here and now and then shape the future. That's it. That's great that you've done some good things in your past, or you did this, or you set yourself up for success in 2021, and then the world fell apart and now you're not successful. So what? That's gone. You can't go back and change the past. All we can do is shape the future. And that's a victor mindset, not a victim mindset.
I love that. That's exactly what your quote says. Tomorrow will always come. It is up to you to be ready for it, to shape it and make it what it will be. And that's completely, your first book that you wrote, the Trident, the forging and reforging of the Navy SEAL leader. What was your, what were you wanting to have happen? What was the impact that you wanted to have from that first book on individuals?
I wanted brutal honesty. First off, I never intended to write a book. The Trident is an interesting.
So you weren't in the Coronado, you weren't in the Bay writing chapters from the book?
As I was going through Buzz, jotting down it's funny, Robert, that's an ongoing joke now in the SEAL teams. And, of course, the Green Berets like to poke and jab at us. So when we have a mission planning brief now, it's like, okay, and who gets the movie rights to this mission? So, yeah, we get a lot of grief about that. But no, man, I never intended to write a book. And actually, the Trident started in my hospital bed because I couldn't talk. I was trached. And I had to write. And initially, guys would ask me what happened. So it started with writing about the firefight. And then I started writing about other missions we were in Iraq. And then I started writing about Afghanistan. And obviously, if any of you read my book, The Heart and Soul of the Trident, it's about a leadership failure. And then coming past that leadership failure and redeeming myself. So there were two things I really wanted to accomplish with the Trident when I wrote it. Really three things. There were three things I wanted to accomplish. Number one, I wanted people to know that it's never too late to come back from a failure or a setback. Because that was a huge setback in my life. And I wanted to write all about it because I knew there would be fellow SEALs who would say, what's the rating on this podcast? Can I?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay. So I knew there'd be other SEALs that would say, fuck that guy. I remember when he was a shitbag and made those mistakes in Afghanistan. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to pull any punches, man. I am going to write everything that happened to me in my career, because I also saw other guys that wrote books that I was like, man, you make yourself out to look like Achilles or Hercules, but you weren't perfect either. So I wanted it to be motivation for others out there to know that, hey, you can mess up and still succeed in this life. Number two, I wanted to show people that really self-leadership is the heart and soul of our ability to overcome. And it's just relentless forward momentum and just continuing to grind forward despite the haters, the naysayers, the adversity you encounter. And then the third thing, I wanted it to be a tribute to my amazing wife. And I think if you have an incredible spouse and you really have done well and chosen well and you make a good team, it really helps. And I'm just fortunate. And I was able to highlight her. And also, I really wanted to highlight the other military spouse and what they go through. So I'm really proud of the Trident and the story that it tells. And what I enjoy the most is when people read it, and I hear this so often, they say, wow, that was not what I expected. It was much better.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then, that hearing the message behind the mission, in essence, what the book was, I love that. And you had kind of highlighted that you started writing the book when you're in the hospital. I want to go back to that. I know you've probably talked about this ad nauseum, but I don't want to go back to the moment. I think, the biggest thing is that, I want people to go to your site, jasonredman.com. You can read more about all of the things that Jason's doing, but you were injured very severely in a firefight in 2007. And, kind of taking that next step into that hospital setting, you wrote something on an orange sign, and this was probably one of the biggest things. I've read it all over the place. Tell me more about that, because that's what started that recognition of I would have to say, like, how strong you were as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. The sign on the door really has a lot of notoriety. I mean, some people don't know that it's mine, but they've seen it out there. It's a bright orange, reddish orange piece of paper with a message that I put on my hospital door about 10 days into the hospital. And like a lot of people, when we have catastrophic events that happen in our lives, it's easy to be overwhelmed by that moment. It's just natural. I mean, all of us feel that way. And I get deep into talking about that with my get off the X mindset and methodology. In those first few days in the hospital, I was on the X. But I realized that there were some interesting things that occurred. Number one, I realized that, once again, I couldn't go back and change the past. And so many people waste so much time and effort and years of their lives, if not their entire lives, focused on the past, on a mistake, on something that didn't happen, on something they wish that would have happened, or something bad that happened, whatever it is. And I quickly realized, laying in that hospital bed, that I couldn't go back and change what happened in that gunfight. Where I was where I was. And all I could do was drive forward. And the other thing, there were people that were, once again, we talk about the victim mindset. Oftentimes when something bad happens to someone, because we have such a pervading victim mindset in this country, we will place others into the victim box. It's almost like an expectation. Oh, this terrible thing happened to you. You're just not going to be able to survive. And, too bad for you because this happened. And I had some people that came into the hospital room and did that to me. Right. They basically said, what happens to our wounded warriors is such a tragedy. It's such a travesty. They're never going to be able to overcome. They're going to be, basically broken members of society forever. And they left. And I remember laying in that bed thinking to myself, already struggling with, hey, I'd been inundated with a lot of negative information. The doctors had told me how badly my arm was mangled, that they were thinking about amputating my arm. I had no use of my left hand. My face was totally blown apart. I'm trached. I'm wired shut. They're feeding me through a stomach tube. I mean, I had nurses that had to help me use the bathroom, which was very humbling. Yeah. But I remember thinking to myself that, look, I have been through worse. Interestingly enough, a lot of people that hear my story often think that the wounds that I sustained on the battlefield were the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And that's not true. The hardest thing I've ever been through was that leadership failure. To be told that you don't measure up as a SEAL, and we're thinking about taking away your trident, the SEAL emblem, because we think you're dangerous, because we don't think you're a good leader. We don't think you're a good operator. There were some people that believed that. That was not a unanimous consensus.
Right.
There were some people that felt that way. And when that occurred, that was the lowest I've ever been. I tell people that I almost killed myself. That is how bad and how rock bottom I hit.
It's taking out your heart.
Because I had tied myself to it. Like, hey, becoming a SEAL is so hard to do,
Right.
And to achieve it, very few people do. And it is a lifestyle. It's not just, it's not just a job.
It's not a pin. It's more than that.
Exactly. And it's a community. It's a brotherhood. And to be suddenly told, hey, we don't think you measure up was the biggest blow I've ever sustained in my life.
Wow.
And to crawl out of that hole. And thankfully, I had some leaders that believed in me and said, hey, you need to humble yourself. You need to really get down into the grassroots of what it means to be a leader. You need to understand your strengths and weaknesses, and you need to drive forward. And that 2-year process happened roughly exactly 2 years prior to my wounding. So over those last 2 years, I had fought and dug and just grinded forward against a lot of negativity. Although I had some good leaders that believed in me, there were a lot of guys within my own troop that I got assigned to who gave me the cold shoulder at all times. And they did not want to work with me. But I showed that I had the ability to do that job and to do it at a high level once again. And slowly but surely, I earned back my credibility and the respect I needed as a leader to be able to lead these incredible group of guys. So fast forward to that hospital bed and that moment when those people wanted to put me in the victim box. And I said, you've been through worse. Like you just climbed out of the darkest hole you've ever been in. So you can do this too. And nobody's going to feel sorry for you because I refuse to feel sorry for myself. And that's when I wrote out that sign. When my wife came back into the room, I said, hey, hand me my pen. And I wrote it out and said, attention to all who enter here. If you're coming in this room with sadness or sorrow, don't bother. The wounds that I received, I got in a job that I love, doing it for people that I love, defending the freedom of a country that I deeply love. I will make a full recovery. What is full? That's the absolute utmost physically. I have the ability to recover. And then I'm going to push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you're about to enter is a room of fun, optimism, and intense rapid regrowth. If you are not prepared for that, go elsewhere. And we signed it, the management.
That's the management we need for a lot more people here.
yeah, no kidding. But it went viral. Obviously, it went all over the place.
How hard was it, like when you were writing that? Right, it's one thing to have in the moment thought of, like, yes, I don't want you to think of this way. I don't want you to, feel bad for me. Were there moments though when you're in that hospital bed going, well, shit, will I get to that 20%? Will I have the tenacity to be able to push myself? Did you see yourself being a speaker?
No, not at that time. I mean, and nor did I ever write that sign thinking, as I'm writing and thinking, oh my God, this is going to be so big. Right. Really what it became, and this is so critical because I talk to people about mission statement. My point man planner is built on, and this idea, the point man principles are built on 4 critical things. And the first thing is relentless belief in your mission. My mission as a SEAL effectively stopped when I was wounded, at least as an operational SEAL. I stayed in more of an administrative management capacity in the SEAL teams for the next 6 years after I was wounded before I retired, but I never operated again. Now, the mindset and how we lead, I continue to hang on to that.
Right.
But it was it was when I wrote that and my mission had been to be a SEAL, suddenly my mission became to overcome. It became to how do I deal with these injuries and how do I set the example for others once again? Because I tell people leadership is, you can lead from anywhere, including a hospital bed. Really, it's your attitude and how you drive forward every single day that makes the difference. That's really what leadership is. It is motivating and inspiring others or yourself to move forward. No. And that sign became my new mission. And this is the power of writing your mission statement down, because when things are good, it's easy to look at a mission statement and be like, yeah, that's us. This is who we are. Right. It's when the world is burning down around you and you are at the bottom of the hole looking up and there's only a pinprick of light and you're like, how will I ever get there again? And it reminds you that this is who I am. So Robert, so many times over the 4 years it took to put me back together, there were tough moments. And I would look at that sign and say, that's you, bro. Like, you are the overcome guy. Like, you have to get up. You've got to get off that X and drive forward. You need to do it for your kids. You need to do it for your wife. You need to do it, as I grew, you need to do it for other wounded warriors out there who are looking to you for motivation. Like, let's go. And that sign became my new mission statement.
You never sat on your X. That's the thing, is like you may have been forced to, but it was interesting because, reading that in July of 2010. So in other words, like 3 years after you had this horrific, in essence, tragedy that happened to you, you and 3 other wounded warriors summited Mount Rainier. What was the mindset? Were all of you, in essence, the point man for each other in that trek and in that journey up Mount Rainier?
I wouldn't say we were the point man for each other, although we leaned on each other. And there were 4 of us, actually. There was 4 of us. Okay. So there was 3 SEALs and then a Navy corpsman that summited, Kevin Ivory. And but I'd say the point man for that mission was Ryan Job. Ryan Job was a SEAL who served with Chris Kyle. That Ryan had a very similar injury to mine. Ryan was shot in the buttstock of his machine gun by a sniper, and the round ricocheted up into his face and did very similar damage to my face. So Ryan and I became friends, and we would talk about our injuries and recovery. And he was super witty and funny. And we had a great relationship. And Ryan had a surgery in 2009, and the hospital accidentally overdosed him on morphine that killed him after he had the surgery. And I was really heartbroken when that occurred. I mean, I just thought about how hard it was to drive forward through these injuries and to stay positive and keep grinding. And Ryan had climbed Mount Rainier in 2008. He was wounded in 2006, totally blinded. That was the difference between us. Ryan was blinded. Obviously, I was not. So he climbed Mount Rainier blind in 2008, or 2009, actually, not too long before he passed away. And so when the company, Camp Patriot, which is still a great organization operating out of Montana, reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in making this climb in honor of Ryan? I was like, absolutely. So Ryan was the point man that led us up that mountain. And I'll tell you, it's one of the harder things I've done because I got sick. I apparently was developing bronchitis. I had a cold that got into full-blown bronchitis by the time we were up at base camp. And I was hacking up like baby alien.
Oh my gosh.
And the guides were like, hey, Red, we don't think you could make it. And I was like, fuck you. I'm going to the top of this mountain. I don't care if it kills me. I'm going to do it for Ryan. Right. So by the time, and about damn near killed me, by the time I got off the mountain, they took me straight to the doctor, and I had full-blown pneumonia. Like the bottom of one of my lungs had started to collapse. So it was miserable. I did not enjoy the view from the summit in any way whatsoever. It was merely a gut check to get up there. And I want to credit Ryan for motivating me. And, I hope he's up there somewhere in like one of the armies of heaven leading the way.
I love that. The higher purpose and always doing it for something bigger than yourself. That's been your life, it seems. And, for this 2022, we had talked about this earlier. You kind of have a different mission that you've identified that you're wanting to go forward with because it's so important, it's so close to your heart, but at the same time you see that it's something that's really affecting the men of today. Tell me more about what that mission looks like for you for 2022.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of men in America right now. There's a weird attack on masculinity. And I actually had somebody write me and was like, "Hey man, there's no attack on you." I was like, dude, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about masculinity as a whole in this nation. There is this idea, and there are, this idea of toxic masculinity. And I will admit that there are some guys that don't know how to be masculine without being toxic.
Right.
I am not a fan. There's a time for colorful and fun banter, but women are amazing. And we have done a good job in this country of elevating our women to some of the highest levels. I mean, look at all the women CEOs. I mean, we have a woman vice president. Whether you like her or don't like her doesn't matter. We have a woman vice president. We are putting women into places all across the board. Some of them are absolutely incredible. I married one of them. But on the flip side of the coin, we are degrading what makes men men, and we're attacking. Men are naturally competitive, and men naturally want to be producers and protectors. It's one of the things that I talked about in one of my lives I did just a few weeks ago. And they don't know how to do that anymore. They're being told, "Hey man, if you use guns, or hey, if you fight, or if you want to be competitive on the sports field, or if you want to win, like that's a toxic masculine mindset." And that's just not true. There's a balance to be a good, strong man. I think I've done a great job of finding that balance. And I feel like we need to try and help more men out there understand what that balance is, that you can be competitive. You can be a leader. You can do hard things like martial arts or hunting or using a gun without being a total dick. We need that. And I think there's a lot of women who want to partner with a man like that.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said with making sure, and I love this because there's so many things that you have put out there, like your 5 principles to elite performance and your 6 tenets to success. And and I think, when I look at the 6 tenets to success of overcome, love deeply, lead always, live greatly, stay humble, and no regrets, it almost speaks volumes to what you just said, is that all of those things can be accomplished for these men who are looking to find themselves in those 6 tenets and living it forward. Make sure people go to jasonredman.com. You can find the Point Man Planner. You can find out more and have Jason come and talk to your company, talk to your group. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I've got 3 questions for you before we leave, but just an amazing conversation. We could probably talk for hours, I'm guessing. All right. So you ready for the first question?
Send it. I'm ready.
All right. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what's one thing that you would tell yourself?
I would say you're going to do really well in this life, and you're going to become really successful at a young age. You're going to make it. You're going to become a SEAL, and you're going to get ranked really high. And then you're going to make the mistake that so many young men who become successful young make. I don't see this as often in women. I see it more in men. You're going to become super egotistical and arrogant, and you're going to think that you're God's gift to everything, and it will be your downfall. You need to stay humble and recognize that every day is a gift. Like every day you have to lead. Like you can't rest on yesterday's successes. Every day you should be driving forward. That would be my advice, because my ego and arrogance almost ended my career.
That's great advice for anybody listening. Here's the second one. If you could tell people, because a lot of people are going through challenges, everybody has challenges in their life, no matter if we're having a virus or not. What would be 2 habits that you would tell them to do daily to kind of start to move forward? It can be in the morning, it could be in the evening, or it could just be any time of the day. What would be 2 habits you'd say, start right now, because that's going to help you to move forward?
Number 1, lead yourself. We're in this world that's inundated with negativity. So stop worrying about what's happening around the world. And I say this not saying, hey, that what's happening around the world is not important, but so many people put so much time and effort into trying to save or help or make a difference in the external world when they're not leading themselves first. So we got to take care of ourselves first. Like, you need to make time to do that. My morning routine is all for me. Like, I read, I meditate, I think, I plan, I work out, I do the things that I need to do that I know restore me. Because if you are not restored and you're not effectively leading yourself, you're never going to be able to lead other people, and the negativity is only going to pile up. You have to be the light in the darkness for yourself. So that would be the biggest thing that I would recommend. And then, practice positivity. The overcome mindset, part of it is just being positive. If you feed yourself nothing but negative energy all the time, social media, the media, if you're around negative people, what you put in is what is going to come out. So do things for yourself that are positive. Find positive input sources to be able to motivate you.
I love that. I love that. This last one is always fun. This last one's fun. And I'm actually interested to see who you pick. So if you could have coffee at a firehouse table, so in other words, nothing is off the table. You can talk about anything. You ask any questions. If you could have coffee with 3 people, they could be deceased or alive, who would they be and why?
It would be Jesus, George Washington, and Martin Luther King.
Wow. That's I like that.
So I obviously I am a Christian, and understanding Jesus, and I'm not like this. I struggle at times with my faith. There's messages in the Bible that I struggle with. There are lessons in the Bible I struggle with. So I'd love to hear it from Jesus himself, because I got questions, man. And then George Washington, I think he hands down is one of the greatest leaders we ever had. I mean, if you look, we would not have a country if it wasn't for George Washington's conviction. And then Martin Luther King, I think, is another one of the greatest leaders we've had in our country. And right now, I would love to sit down with him and say, how do we fix the broken race relations that are occurring in our country right now? We are having individuals that are splitting us. They, instead of focusing on how to unite, they're focusing more on how to divide. And he did such a great job of getting desegregation, of convincing people. I mean, his I Had a Dream speech, that someday will be measured not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. And right now we're moving in the other direction. Right. So I would love for him to come back and say, guys, what are you doing? Let's talk about how we bring this country back together.
I love it. No, that's a good coffee table right there. Jason, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything you've done. And definitely, I know I got a lot out of this. And if you want to find out more, go to jasonredman.com, find out more. And, good luck with everything that you're doing. And make sure that go get that appointment planner. I just signed up to get one today. So,
hey, and I'm going to give you guys a little hint. I am working on edition 2. We're updating the original appointment planner. So we're going to put some more stuff in it. So definitely now they're for 3 months. So just recognize you could get one now, but the new one that's going to come out in maybe between 3 to 6 months will be version 2, edition 2. And it's going to have some bonus content in it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, hey, Jason, I appreciate you being on today, and best of luck with you.
Robert, my honor, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening today, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.